Coming live from the Tivoli Met Radio studio here on Auraria campus, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for listening to All Sports through Met Radio on mymetmedia.com, live every Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. This is your host Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I am going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, college basketball, and golf. So before I start the show, I hope you all had a great week. To start off at the middle of every month, I post a video or talk about one stadium I went to. So stay tuned for future videos from stadiums across the US. For the month of April, I posted a video where I talked about Kauffman Stadium and my experience there. You can go watch that video on YouTube. You can also view videos from the past and subscribe to my YouTube page at All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to Major League Baseball. Chris Davis and the Athletics have agreed to a 2-year contract extension. Daniel Murphy won't need to have surgery on his broken index finger, and his finger is healing well. So right now I'm going to talk about the beginning of the Rockies season and their early struggles as well. So looking at the Rockies schedule, they haven't won a lot of games. To start off at the beginning of the season, they went against the Marlins down in Miami, and they only won the first 2 games. They lost the last 2. Then the following week, they went up to Tampa to play the Rays, and they only won the last game, and they lost the first 2. As the Rockies headed back to Colorado for their first homestand, opening weekend they went against the Dodgers, and the following week they went against the Braves. They ended up getting swept by the Dodgers opening weekend and losing the first 2 games of the Braves series. The last Braves game was postponed due to weather, and it's going to be made up in August. And then they went on the road to San Francisco, and they lost the first 3 games. In the last game against the Giants, the Rockies landed up pulling off that win, with German Marquez on the mound, pitching a complete game, going for 9 innings and only allowing 1 hit. They're able to win that game 4-0. And then they landed up going down to San Diego and beating the Padres both games. So the Rockies have turned it around. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now. They're able to win the last 3 games. But this weekend's series against the Phillies here at Coors Field is definitely going to be a tough series. With Bryce Harper and the Phillies coming into Coors Field, it's not going to be easy for the Rockies. So far, the Phillies have looked like they're going to be one of the best teams in baseball. And they definitely have been playing great so far. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with the Phillies. And then the following week, the Rockies go against the Nationals here at Coors Field. So after losing a lot of games up until now, in the last 3 games, it looks like the Rockies have turned it around. So hopefully their success continues on to the Phillies series and on to the Nationals and for the rest of April. This April schedule is definitely tough. We got the Phillies and the Nationals here at Coors Field, and then they go on the road to Atlanta and they finish off April up in Milwaukee, so it's not going to get any easier. After the Rockies have lost a few close games, especially to the Giants the first 3 games on the road, we need to start winning some more baseball games. Looks like Nolan Arenado is going to get back to the Nolan Arenado we know. He's going to get back to hitting the baseball, having some hits, hitting some home runs. We definitely need that from Nolan Arenado. And we need the starting pitching, the bullpen, and the lineup to play really great. We need the lineup to have some hits and produce runs, and we need the pitching to be great and pitch some great ball games so we can start winning some baseball games now and going forward. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with the Rockies, but with some of the players coming off the disabled list, they're looking like they're going to play like the Rockies from last year and start winning some more games. Right now I'm going to tell you my early season predictions for each division in the American League and the National League. And I will also get into the early season predictions for individual awards in the American League and in the National League. So to start off in the American League, my predictions are the Red Sox are going to win the American League East, the Indians are going to win the American League Central, and the Astros are going to win the American League West. In the American League East, I expect the Red Sox to win 90 to 100 games, the Yankees to win 90 to 100 games, the Rays to win 80 to 90 games, the Blue Jays to win 70-80 games, and the Oilers to win 50 to 65 games. For the American League East, I expect this order: the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Rays, the Blue Jays, and the Oilers. But a lot can change. In the American League Central, I expect the Indians to win 85 to 95 games, the Twins to win 75 to 85 games, the White Sox to win 70 to 80 games, the Tigers to win 70 to 80 games, and the Royals to win 70-80 games. In the American League Central, I also expect this order as well. In the American League West, I expect the Astros to win 90 to 100 games, the Mariners to win 80 to 95 games, the Athletics to win 80 to 90 games, the Angels to win 75 to 85 games, and the Rangers to win 70 to 80 games. I would expect this order as well. For each division in the American League, I kind of expect the order that I listed and for them to win the amount of games in between what I listed as well. It's early in the season, it's just predictions, but I would expect the predictions to be somewhere around like what I listed. In the National League, in the National League East, I expect the Phillies to win 90 to 100 games, the Braves to win 85 to 95 games, the Mets to win 80 to 90 games, the Nationals to win 80 to 90 games, and the Marlins to win 50 to 65 games. Now the National League East is definitely going to be interesting. It could be a 4-team race except for the Marlins that will determine who wins the National League East, and this may come down to the end of September. But I would expect this division to be between the Phillies, the Braves, the Mets, and the Nationals. I predicted the Phillies to win this division, but I would definitely keep an eye out on the Braves and the Mets and even the Nationals. They could be fighting for this division at the end of the regular season. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens here. In the National League Central, I expect the Brewers to win 85 to 95 games, the Cardinals to win 85 to 95 games, the Cubs to win 80 to 90 games, the Pirates to win 70 to 80 games, and the Reds to win 70 to 80 games. I would expect this order in this division, but it can change. In the National League West, I expect the Dodgers to win 90 to 100 games, the Rockies to win 85 to 95 games, the Padres to win 70 to 80 games, the Diamondbacks to win 70 to 80 games, and the Giants to win 70 to 80 games. I would expect this order in this division as well. Definitely in the National League, a lot can change. These three divisions are definitely going to be interesting, and it can definitely come down to the end of the regular season. So that's my predictions for the American League and for the National League of how many games I think each team's going to win and what team's going to win their division as well. The teams I would keep an eye out on in the 2019 baseball season: the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Rays. The Rays have looked great so far, and they have started off the season great, so I definitely keep an eye out on them. The Indians, the Twins, the White Sox, the Astros, the Mariners. They started off the season great as well. I'd keep an eye out on them as well. The Phillies, the Braves, the Mets, the Nationals, the Brewers, Cardinals, and Dodgers. So those are the teams I definitely keep an eye out for. I would definitely watch out for the Rays. They've started out the season great. The Mariners have started off the season great. With all the additions the Phillies made throughout the offseason, and also being able to add Bryce Harper to their team, they're definitely a World Series favorite. The Brewers you got to keep an eye out for. The Cardinals, after adding Paul Goldschmidt, they've started off the season great. The Dodgers, keep an eye out on them as well. They started off the season great, especially Cody Bellinger. They've been to the last 2 World Series, even though they've lost both World Series. They've won the National League West the last few years. They've made it into the postseason. These last few seasons, they've made it pretty far into the postseason, so I would definitely watch out for the Dodgers again this year. So right now I'm going to give you my predictions for individual awards in the American League and in the National League. So to start off in the American League, my prediction of who's going to win American League MVP will be Mike Trout. Mookie Betts won MVP last year. Other possible runner-ups can be Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. For American League Cy Young, my prediction is Justin Verlander. Blake Snell won the Cy Young last year. Other possible runner-ups can be Chris Sale and Luis Severino. American League Rookie of the Year and Manager of the Year will depend on how certain teams are playing throughout the regular season. I will have a better answer for these 2 categories at the All-Star break. In the National League, for National League MVP, my prediction is I would expect Bryce Harper to win National League MVP. Christian Yelich won MVP last year. Other possible runner-ups can be Paul Goldschmidt, Cody Bellinger, Freddie Freeman, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and Nolan Arenado. For National League Cy Young, my prediction is Max Scherzer. Jacob deGrom won Cy Young last year. He could be a possible candidate again this year, and he can win the National League Cy Young back-to-back seasons. We're going to have to wait and see how Jacob deGrom pitches this year. Other possible runner-ups can be Clayton Kershaw, Aaron Nola, and Patrick Corbin. For National League Rookie of the Year and Manager of the Year, it will depend on how certain teams are playing throughout the regular season. I will have a better answer for these 2 categories at the All-Star break. So that's my predictions for individual awards and what players I predict to win certain awards in the American League and in the National League. It's just the beginning of the baseball season, so a lot can change throughout the regular season. Certain players can get injured, miss some time. Certain teams can play great, or they can start playing bad. It's a long season, so a lot can change. But that's my early season predictions for the American League and for the National League, and for individual awards in the American League and in the National League as well. In the Week 2 Major League Baseball Power Rankings, the current top 10 Major League Baseball teams are the Astros, Rays, Brewers, Mets, Mariners, Dodgers, Cardinals, Braves, Phillies, and Yankees. You definitely want to keep an eye out on the Astros. They were on a 10-game winning streak, but they lost to the Athletics, and the Athletics ended that 10-game winning streak. The Rays have started off the season great. The Mariners have also started off the season great. So for right now, those are the teams I definitely keep an eye out for this next week. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NFL football. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks have agreed to a 4-year contract extension. Russell Wilson is now the highest paid player in the NFL. Demaryius Thomas and the Patriots have agreed to a 1-year contract. Running back Ty Montgomery and the Jets have agreed to a 1-year contract. Wide receiver Chris Hogan and the Panthers have agreed to a 1-year contract. Wide receiver Adam Thielen and the Vikings have agreed to a 4-year contract. Defensive back Patrick Chung and the Patriots have agreed to a 1-year contract. Bears tight end Zach Miller is retiring from the NFL. The NFL regular season schedules were released on Wednesday, April 17. The Packers will go against the Bears to kick off the 100th season of the NFL. So there's a lot of big games and big matchups in the 2019 NFL regular season schedule. There's a lot of great matchups in Week 1, in Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, the Thanksgiving games, and in the international games as well. So next week, I will get into the NFL regular season schedule and tell you what games you need to watch out for and what matchups are going to be great throughout the NFL regular season. And I will dissect every NFL schedule and tell you the key matchups in 2019. And I will also get into what teams the Broncos go against in 2019 as well. So make sure to tune in for that. The NFL draft is around the corner, and it's coming up at the end of April as well. So make sure to tune into the NFL draft as well. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NBA and NHL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NBA basketball. Head coach Luke Walton and the Lakers have agreed to part ways. Luke Walton is going to become the Kings' next head coach. The Kings fired head coach Dave Sugar. The Grizzlies fired head coach J.B. Bickerstaff. In the 2018-2019 season stats, the leaders in every category was James Harden, 36 points, Russell Westbrook, 10 assists, Andre Drummond, 15 rebounds, Miles Turner, 2 blocks, and Paul George, 2 steals. In the 2018-2019 season, there were 27,955 three-pointers made, which is a new NBA record. James Harden made 378, Steph Curry made 354, Paul George made 292, Buddy Hield made 278, and Kemba Walker made 263 pointers. In the 2018-2019 season, there were 127 triple-doubles, which is a new NBA record. Nikola Jokic now has 5,000 career points. This season, he had 12 triple-doubles and 56 double-doubles. Nikola Jokic joined LeBron James and Magic Johnson as the only player since 1980 to record a triple-double in their first playoff game. In Game 2 of the Nuggets-Spurs series, the Nuggets' 19-point deficit was the largest comeback in Nuggets playoff history. So right now I'm going to talk about the Nuggets in the Spurs series in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. So to start off, on Saturday, April 13, the Nuggets lost to the Spurs 101-96. In my opinion, the Nuggets should have won this game. They kind of let this game go towards the end and throughout the game. But this was a game they should have won, especially for it being the first game of the playoffs And with them having home court advantage and being here at the Pepsi Center with the home crowd, they should have won this game. But for almost every player on the Nuggets roster, this was their first playoff game of their careers. So after game one passed, now that they have the experience, they were definitely ready for game two. And they knew what to expect after losing game one and how a playoff game was going to be and the type of playoff atmosphere they were going to have as well. But you got to remember, the Spurs series, it's definitely not going to be an easy series. And it's going to be a series. There's a reason why the Spurs have been in the playoffs for the last 22 consecutive seasons. And Spurs head coach Greg Popovich, he definitely has a lot of playoff experience. And it may not be a Spurs team from the past, which included Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. But this Spurs team is still great. We got DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge and the rest of the team. So you definitely got to watch out for the Spurs. On Tuesday, April 16, the Nuggets beat the Spurs 114 to 105. So after what happened in game one, the Nuggets knew what to expect in game two, and they knew that they had to be ready. So for parts of this game, it looked like the Spurs were going to win it, but if it wasn't for Jamal Murray in the last few minutes of the game, I don't think the Nuggets would have won this game. And for what he was able to do, the Nuggets were able to pull off a close win. So now the Nuggets are heading down to San Antonio on Thursday, April 18th, and Saturday, April 20th. They're going to go against the Spurs down in San Antonio. Depending on what happens there, next week, the Nuggets may be heading back here to Denver, playing the Spurs here at the Pepsi Center again. Depending what happens there, the Nuggets may be having to go back down to San Antonio the following Thursday to play another game down there as well. So you definitely need to watch the next two Nuggets Spurs games, which will be on the road down in San Antonio on April 18th and April 20th. And then it's looking like the Nuggets will be coming back here to the Pepsi Center the following Tuesday on April 23rd, and maybe going down to San Antonio again on Thursday, April 25th. But right now the series is tied, so we're definitely going to have to wait and see what happens for the rest of the series. Steph Curry passed Ray Allen to become the all-time leader in three-pointers made in the playoffs. Steph Curry made 386 three-pointers in 91 games, and Ray Allen made 385 three-pointers in 171 games. Kevin Durant moved into 15 in most points scored in the playoffs. Spurs head coach Greg Popovich passed Larry Winkins to become the all-time leader in most combined wins by a head coach in NBA history, which includes the regular season and the postseason. The Clippers overcame a 31-point deficit against the Warriors to complete the largest comeback in NBA playoff history. The Warriors are the only team to blow a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals and blow a 31-point lead in a playoff game. The NBA playoffs are underway, so right now I'm going to update you with the current playoff picture in the Eastern and Western Conference. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, in the Bucks-Pistons series, the Bucks are leading the series at 2 games. In the Celtics-Pacers series, the Celtics are leading the series at 2 games. In the 76ers-Nets series, the series is tied at 1. In the Raptors-Magic series, the series is tied at 1. In the Western Conference, in the Warriors-Clippers series, the series is tied at 1. In the Rockets-Jazz series, the Rockets are leading the series at 2 games. In the Trailblazers-Thunder series, the Trailblazers are leading this series at 2 games. And in the Nuggets-Spurs series. The series is tied at 1. So that's the current NBA playoff picture in the Eastern and Western Conference of the first round of the NBA playoffs. A lot can change within this next week, and next week I will update you with these playoff series in both the Eastern and Western Conference. Moving on now to NHL hockey. Tampa Bay is the first team in NHL history to win the President's Trophy, have a historic 62-win regular season, and get swept in the first round of the playoffs. Columbus is moving on to the second round of the playoffs after sweeping Tampa Bay. So far, the Avalanche have looked great in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Avalanche are going against the Calgary Flames, and right now, it's looking great for the Avalanche. They have a 3-1 series lead right now. And all they got to do is win one more game, and they're moving on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. In the last 10 games of the regular season, the Avalanche were one of the hottest teams in the NHL. They were playing great hockey. They were scoring goals. Their goalie was playing great as well. And that carried on into the playoffs as well. Now the series started off in Calgary, and except for the first game of the series, after that, the Avalanche have looked great so far. And since Calgary was the best team in the Western Conference of the NHL, and the Avalanche went into the playoffs as a wildcard team, the series started off in Calgary. In the first game, Calgary beat the Avalanche 4-0. In the second game, the Avalanche beat Calgary 3-2 in overtime. In the third game, after game 1 and 2 were in Calgary, it was time for game 3 and 4 to be here at the Pepsi Center in Denver. And once the Avalanche came back here to the Pepsi Center, in game 3, the Avalanche beat Calgary 6-2. And then game 4, the Avalanche beat Calgary 3-2 in overtime. So in the last week of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Avalanche, it has definitely been great for them so far. Except for the Avalanche losing game 1 last Thursday on April 11, 4-0. The Avalanche have been playing great hockey. They were able to win game 2 on Saturday, April 13, 3-2 in overtime. They were able to win game 3 on Monday, April 15, 6-2. And they were able to win game 4 on Wednesday, April 17, 3-2. So with the Avalanche having a 3-1 lead over Calgary, there's a great chance that the Avalanche are going to move on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. All they got to do is win one more game, whether it's up in Calgary or back here in the Pepsi Center. So the next game against the Flames will be up in Calgary, and game 5 is on Friday, April 19. If the Avalanche happen to not win that game, then game 6 will be on Sunday, April 21st, back here in Denver at the Pepsi Center. But I would expect the Avalanche to win this series up in Calgary on Friday, April 19, or back here at the Pepsi Center in Denver on Sunday, April 21st. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But the Avalanche have definitely looked great in the playoffs so far. The Stanley Cup playoffs are underway right now. Right now I'm going to update you with the current playoff picture in the Eastern and Western Conference. To start off in the Eastern Conference, in the Columbus-Tampa Bay series, Columbus was able to sweep Tampa Bay in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Columbus is moving on to the second round of the playoffs. In the Boston-Toronto series, right now this series is tied at 2 games. In the Washington-Carolina series, right now Washington leads the series 2-1. And in the New York Islanders-Pittsburgh series, the Islanders were able to sweep Pittsburgh in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. and the Islanders are moving on to the second round of the playoffs. In the Western Conference, in the Nashville-Dallas series, this series is tied at 2 games. In the Winnipeg-St. Louis series, this series is tied at 2 games. In the Avalanche-Calgary series, the Avalanche are leading this series 3-1. And in the Vegas-San Jose series, Vegas is leading this series 3-1. So that's the current playoff picture in the Eastern and Western Conference of the NHL. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about college basketball, golf, and the end of the show. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to college basketball. Zion Williamson announced he will declare for the 2019 NBA Draft. So Zion Williamson is coming out of Duke, and he only played 1 season at Duke, which was his freshman season. And the way he played at Duke throughout the season, except for the incident against UNC, where it was the first minute of the basketball game and he was going down the court and he fell down to the floor because of the shoe incident. Zion Williamson had a great season with Duke. Duke made it all the way to the Elite 8, but they got upset there. Duke played really great throughout the season, but when it was time for March Madness basketball and they were playing in the college basketball tournament, they kind of struggled a bit. And up until the Sweet 16, they had a hard time winning games. And the games that they won up until the Elite 8, they were just close games. And when they got to the Elite 8, they got lucky before the Elite 8 when they were winning close games, winning games by 1 point. But when they got to the Elite 8, the luck wasn't on their side and they ended up losing the game by 1 point, which ended their season. A lot of people expected Duke to get to the Final Four and potentially win the men's college basketball tournament, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Even though Duke didn't make it to the Final Four or win the men's college basketball tournament, they still had a great season. Zion Williamson was a great player. Zion Williamson was one of the best players, or the best player, in college basketball this season. So hopefully now that he declared for the NBA draft, that's going to carry on to his NBA career as well. So is Zion Williamson going to be the first pick in the NBA draft this year? We're going to have to wait and see, but he definitely has a great chance. And the way he played at Duke in his college basketball career, I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be the first pick in this year's NBA draft. And if he's not the first overall pick, he's definitely going to be the second pick. He's going to be the first or the second pick, but I do expect Zion Williamson to be the first pick in this year's draft. And whatever team drafts Zion Williamson, he's definitely going to be a franchise player, and he has a lot of potential in the NBA and going into the future. So he's going to be a great player, and he's definitely going to change someone's team. The teams that have the highest chance for the number 1 pick in the NBA draft is the Knicks, Suns, and Cavaliers at 14%. So the way the NBA draft works, it's not like the NFL draft or some of the other drafts where the teams that had the worst records get the first pick or they get one of the first picks in the draft. In the NBA, they do the NBA draft lottery. So the teams that had the worst record in the NBA and the teams that didn't make it into the playoffs, they're in the NBA draft lottery. And almost every team has an equal chance of getting the first overall pick or some of the other picks in the first round of the draft. So we're going to have to wait and see what teams get what pick in this year's NBA draft. And once the NBA draft lottery happens, Then we're going to see what team gets the first overall pick and what teams get the other picks as well. And once we know what team gets the first overall pick, in which I would expect it to be the Knicks, the Suns, or the Cavaliers, we're going to have to see if they draft Zion Williamson. But whatever team gets the first pick, I would expect them to draft Zion Williamson with the first overall pick. Moving on now to golf, Tiger Woods is back. Tiger Woods won the Masters for the 5th time. It's his first major victory since 2008. It's his 15th career major title, his first Masters win since 2005, and he is the second oldest Masters winner. Since 2008, Tiger Woods won the US Open with a torn ACL. He had a neck injury, sprained MCL, Achilles injury, and 3 back surgeries in 3 years. With everything Tiger Woods has went through in the last decade, with him winning the 2019 Masters, this was one of the greatest comebacks in golf and in sports history. Tiger Woods has a 8-1 favorite to win the PGA Championship, so we're going to have to wait and see if Tiger Woods wins the PGA Championship, but he's definitely one of the favorites after winning the Masters. Tiger Woods is going to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So congrats to Tiger Woods on winning the Masters. And it's great to see that Tiger Woods is finally back, and it's a Tiger Woods that we have known throughout his career as well. So I can't wait to see what Tiger Woods does now and going into the future, and what other major titles he can win going into the future as well. So I'm glad to see Tiger Woods is finally back. Moving on now to end the show, what to watch for this week in sports. NBA basketball, the NBA playoffs, the Nuggets go against the Spurs in the first round of the playoffs, NHL hockey, the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Avalanche go against Calgary in the first round of the playoffs, Major League Baseball. Moving on now, on the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, and NHL hockey. I hope you all have a great weekend. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports through Met Radio here on mymetmedia.com. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.